Hello, my name is Adaile for Abriba Multimedia Network, and today we're in the beautiful home of Chief Barrister Jackson Abai. Thank you so much for having us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are going to run right into the interview section. So, sir, when the name Chief Barrister Jackson Abai is brought up in anywhere in Abriba, in fact, I even think all the way to Lagos where I live, it evokes respect. So, can we get to know you, sir?
Well, I don't know. Like you said, my name is Jackson Abayaba. I'm a lawyer by training. Practiced law for quite a while. Eventually went into banking. And after 10 years, sitting on the board as a company secretary, legal advisor to a bank, I found myself outside the bank and then ventured into business. I'm into real estate, and then part of the real estate mix for me is that I'm more into the hotel industry now. So I own 3 hotels for now.
All right, thank you, sir. I think someone's upbringing plays a part in how they are as a person or who they grow up to be. So, sir, could you enlighten us about your upbringing?
Well, my attitude is to say that, like they usually say, you see water in a glass half. Somebody sees it as half filled, and the other person sees it as half empty. I grew up, I was born before the war, and suffered the vicissitudes of the war. And after the war, I found myself, my father was in Cameroon during the war, and then we found ourselves going back to Cameroon. I got exposed to a lot of luxury when we got to Cameroon in 1970. I was chauffeur driven to school when I entered primary 1 in a 404, and in less than 6 months my father had a Mercedes, and I was taken to school in a Mercedes. We were exposed to all kinds of shopping, going to malls, going to cinema, going to football matches. And then suddenly by 1973 everything had collapsed. The house, the rent, the electricity bill in the house, it couldn't be paid. My father had issues with the government, and then he found himself back to Nigeria. And then in 1973, we all came back straight to Abriba in a Gongoro. Gongoro is called the 911 vehicle. And if you remember that when we were going to Cameroon in 1970, we went from Cameroon in an aeroplane, and then coming back 3-4 years later, we came back in a 911 vehicle. So for me, it was traumatic. It was a very traumatic experience for a young boy, for a little child who had to trek 2-3 miles to go to school, who had no uniform. You had to use some very charitable neighbors who had sympathy for you, who gave you clothes that you had to wear. And because they were bigger neighbors, you had to use plantain leaves, leaves or fronds to now use as belt to tie your shorts to go to school. And so it was traumatic. They had to send you out of school because your father couldn't pay school fees. Meanwhile, the first 3 years of your primary school, you never knew anything about school fees. You never knew how it was paid. So for a young man, and then on Saturdays, you had to follow your aunties to the farm. Somebody who has never been to farm, you had to go with the whole. So it was a traumatic thing for me. And so at that very young age, I was desperate to leave poverty. How do I escape from this kind of situation? So for an Abriba person, by my primary 4, in our compound there in Ozu, I remember. I said, we said writing letters. Those letters were to write them to exporters abroad, telling them to give us samples and to ship goods to us. We didn't know what it was. And so at that very young age, we couldn't have typewriters, so we're using biro to write. And when you write, they will reply you and then type. We used to have what we call publishing. You had companies abroad that published for representatives of manufacturers abroad. So we had to publish our names, and they sent letters to us, demanding us whether we could be their representatives and all that. But because of our age, we didn't understand. We're more interested in what they call samples, because it was those samples that will help you to sell and then have money to buy clothes, buy shoes and all that. So by my primary 5, we went back to Aba, and then I continued to write those business letters. By my primary 6 in Santa Maria Aba, I had my first sample of a Polaroid camera called EE22 by Polaroid. They gave me a free Polaroid. And so when I entered secondary school in my first year, I was making money by being a cameraman, taking pictures, during inter-house sports. And then I continued to write those business letters throughout my secondary school. That was the only way I could augment my income. And then because at that time we had become quite poor, there were no provisions, there were nothing except just the school fees. So what you had to do was, if you needed to take tea, it meant you needed water, you needed sugar, and then bread. And so for me it was shaped, that was what shaped me. And then I continued to write those letters in secondary school. When I went into university, I was determined to, be a lawyer, because at a very young age, people said, oh, you were argumentative, you were intelligent, you could be a lawyer and all that. And so I was lucky. I took JAMB the same year I did my WAEC, and then I found myself in university to read law. And then throughout my university education, I did the same thing exactly, to be able to get extra money to survive, buy clothes, buy a few things. And because I had no experience, I was too young. At that time, there were foreign manufacturers who were willing to offer me to be their representative in Nigeria. That means they will ship goods to me, and then I will sell and then pay them back. But I didn't know what it was. They said DP. DP means document against payment. That means they will ship goods to you on credit. You understand? They will send the documents. When it gets in here, you can now pay them. But I didn't know what it was. They used to use the word CAD, cash against document. I didn't know what it was in secondary school. So I was more concerned with the samples that I needed to be able to sell and then make money. So, by and large, that shaped me. And at a very young age, I knew that if I went to holidays in Cotonou, I needed to buy okrika, shoes, clothes. When I get back to school in secondary school, I needed to sell to make extra money, to survive. So basically, I think that's what shaped who I am.
So, in any case, sell or your background, not they motivate your success. Is that what we are coming out with? How?
Well, like I said, it depends on how you see it. That same background that you say motivated my success could have meant that it would, masturbate failure. One thing that was critical for me was that because of my background, I was exposed to wealth. Then I saw the other extreme. So I was in a hurry to leave poverty, extreme poverty, and get back to the other side. But the problem was that, how do you do that? Do you understand? When your father had nothing, again, you had no foundation. So I knew very early in life that at least the only thing I could anchor and live on was to go to school. Do you understand? So I had to read, I had to study. I knew that if I went to school, even if I don't become rich, I would have a little to be able to feed myself and my family.
So in the film, in case about the turning point, that point on this struggle, that struggle, we do this and that effect about the turning point.
Well, if you ask me, I have several turning points. Part of my history is that when I was in class 3, I developed asthma. And we came back in Abeba that year in December, and my father said, I was told to go to stream, which I used to go to fetch water. Went there, and that year it was difficult for me to carry the buckets to climb that hill. And when I got back, I said I wasn't going to go back. And I was told in my house that I needed to go back. I said, no, you need to treat me. I needed to get medication. And they said they didn't have money. So I said, without money, I wasn't going to go to the stream again. And then it was agreed. My father said, if you don't go back, then your school ends. And maybe, I think I was a little bit stubborn. I refused to go. And so when they were going back that year, that December to Aba, they refused to take me back to Aba. And it was agreed that I went to talk to my mom, who was already separated from my father when I was 2. And my mom said, okay, spoke to my father's junior brother. And they agreed that I should go and become an apprentice to sell okrika in Cotonou. And I was in what you call GS3. And then suddenly we found ourselves in Umuahia. And in the night, I kept on thinking, so that's how I will now be somebody without a school cert, WAEC. And then all the people I competed in class with, all the people I was better, than, that would mean that they will have WAEC. So, very early in the morning, 4 a.m., the cough started and I left. I left the place midnight and I walked for a place they call Ekenobizi in Umuahia, and got to where they had Ottawa and found my way to the railway station, and then pleaded with the ticket sellers in the train because my school is at a place called Mbausi, which is the railway station. And then I found myself back in school without paying tickets. And I went to school and told them that I lost my money. I lost the money, and that they had sympathy and allowed me to be in school. So if you ask me, that's part of my turning point, because that decision that I took at that time to go back to school was instrumental to me becoming a lawyer. And whatever I am today, I still believe that it is part of my efforts. I became a lawyer and finished my NYSC in 1988 and went to Abeba people in Aba to canvass for them to find pity in me and give me the opportunity to represent them as their lawyer. Luckily for me, one day, a very rich Abeba man, who was young at that time, called Diku Densi, had issues with the customs, and then called me, looked for me in my father's place. He realized I wasn't there, came to my uncle's house, saw me, and then said I should meet him in his office. I met him the next day. He gave me the brief, and then luckily for me, I was able to deliver, I was able to rescue his servants and the truck drivers who were carrying some goods that were seized by customs under Decree 20 of 1988, which required that anybody who imported contraband items needed to go to prison for life. So I was able to save him. I was able to save his boys. I was able to save the truck drivers. And so by the time I came back to Aba from Port Harcourt, when I got those people out of prison, I became a hero as a young lawyer in Aba. And so I started having briefs. And then he found confidence in me. And some people had approached him at that time to come and establish a bank. And because of what I had done and the confidence he had in me, he started taking me to visit Lagos for the meetings to set up a bank called Citizens Bank. I was barely in my early 20s. And so I was able to incorporate Citizens Bank in 1989. And after that, he told me, he spoke to me and said he wanted me, that he was advised that the most critical position in a bank was that of the company secretary, legal advisor. So that's how he persuaded me to leave Aba and then come to Lagos. So I think that's part of the turning point in my life.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Before we continue, let's go on a brief commercial break.
Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Bovibes Entertainment. Bovibes is an entertainment outfit that marries both music and movies production. Bovibes runs a music school. Oh yes. You think you've seen something? Nah, you ain't seen nothing yet. Gentlemen and ladies, I propose to you Bovibes Television. The dream is to give hope to the struggling artists on the street, flood the stations with domestic content, movies, music, lifestyle, fashion, culture, and of course, shows and events. So, what are you waiting for? Let's invest and create superstars of our very own. That struggling artist on the street can be our own Jay-Z, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Shakira, Akon, Angelina Jolie, and all the legends. You need me and I need you. There are two types of successful people all over the world. The ones who create the business future and the ones who joins along the line. Partner with Bovibes today.
Thank you for staying with us. We are back and we still have a lot to unveil to you concerning our able barrister Jackson Aba. My colleague will take that session.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Once again, it's been a really eye-opening session. So as I ask this question, I'm also going to incorporate something you said from the previous messages. So you mentioned that you were getting briefs for you to become the representative, but because you didn't understand what that was, you were after the samples, which to present day that was a small fry in comparison to what they were offering. So do you think that if you had actually known what that is, do you think that your life would have taken a different shape? And were there times throughout all this process that you felt like giving up on this journey?
Well, I don't know how to answer the first part of that question, because if I knew what it was, and the small boy in his secondary school had a container of goods, what it meant would have been that I would have left school. I would have had money at that point. But did I know what that money was? I had no skills, I have no knowledge, Do you understand? So if you ask me, it is possible that would have ruined me at that time. Because yes, I would have money, a lot of money. I would buy a car, maybe I would build a house. But I had no knowledge about life. If I had that at the age of 14 or 15 or 16 or 17, you understand? So it's possible that it's part of the divine order, of things. What's the next one?
Do you think that all the things that happen in your life, did you ever at some point feel like giving up on pursuit?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I ever considered giving up. I knew that poverty is a perilous situation. It's not something you wish for your enemy. Because think of it, a young man has asthma, and there is a drug called Ventolin, Franol at that time. They were pittance, and you didn't have anybody. Sometimes I had to go to I had an auntie who was living at Ndomuka, I would go to him because she was asthmatic, and I would say, she was a grandma. I said, please, I need some drugs. She said, the one I have is not enough for me. I can't give you. And so you feel that you are about dying. And all you need is a little drug to put into your mouth, and you are saved. And you didn't have that money. So I just don't know how I could have given up. I never thought of giving up. I felt that you either succeeded or that you failed and died as a person. So I'm not sure. There were frustrations. If you're asking whether there were frustrations, I had a lot of frustrations in life. There were times that everywhere looked so gloomy. But I'm not sure the alternative was to give up. I'm not sure at any time I thought of giving up.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody, so let me bring it up. You know, man, all the time, you've said so many things, and in the course of it, I am from Balani. If we are obstacles you overcome, you mentioned them. So immediately, because this publication, almost so many people had that from there, and young people when they design it. So can you tell us those limitations and also eligibility overcome?
Well, for me, the first limitation was that you must live above what is hype, what is fashion. Growing up, what was fashion was to go and become an apprentice and do business. It was not fashionable to go to school. I knew at that time that at a very young age that there was no mutual antagonism between education and being a business person or going to school and being successful. When we were growing up in this community, the idea was that if you went to school, it was certain that you were going to be poor. That the fastest and easiest way to wealth was that you needed not to go to school and you needed to be a trader. I knew at that very young age that I needed to go to school and that there was no incongruity between going to school and being a successful business person. I knew at the back of my mind that I needed to be a business person if I had the opportunity. So I had to work hard. I had to study. I had to pass my JAMB. I had to go into the university. I had to graduate. And then I started looking for school. So basically, if you ask me, part of it is that to be successful, you must have a vision. And when you have that vision, you must be committed to that vision. There are drawbacks, setbacks from time to time. But you must tell yourself that I need to attain these objectives. Sometimes these are not things that are within your control. But one of the lessons I've learned in life is that if you have bold, audacious dreams, somehow the invisible hand of God tries to bring everything together to make sure that they crystallize.
Thank you, sir. Basically, you've covered a lot of the questions that I hope to ask, but I cannot go away without asking if in everything you have gone through, your experiences, especially your experiences, would you say right now that your life and your success is everything you imagined, everything you envisioned?
Well, first, I usually tell people, when people say, oh, you are successful, that's something I have doubts about. Because for me, success is a journey, it's not a destination. You don't become successful until when they put you down out there in the grave. And then those who are living will determine whether you were successful. And so the danger in we saying that we are successful is that there is no incentive for us to continue to work hard until we realize that we are not successful. And success is a relative term. Success in terms of what? Is it in terms of financial? Is it in terms of finances? Is it in terms of our home? Is it in terms of our health? So it's a relative term. So I do not indulge myself in saying that I'm successful. I am a work in progress. I continue to work every single day. Success is almost a fleeting illusion that we want to attain. We never get there. So it becomes an impetus for us to continue to galvanize ourselves and then move further. Once we get to that point where we say we are successful, I think it becomes the beginning of our failure and our end.
Thank you, sir. Let's take another commercial break, and when we are back, you can already tell that we are fully inspired by this section. When we're back, we're going to take the 3 last questions and wrap up. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, we've been having an amazing, inspiring session with Chief Barrister Jackson Abai, and we are going now to the next question. So, sir, what inspires you?
I inspire myself. I always tell myself that whatever I think I've achieved is nothing, but I need to move and up my game, you know. So I get inspired by myself, believing that I have achieved nothing, and that the competition is not about the next person, it's about myself trying to be the better and the best of who I am.
Thank you, sir.
Another thing age trouble. If by Basare, you said something, Basare, one of your aunts, Daniel Nassau.
Yeah, my grand aunt. Yeah.
Okome was such a that maybe 5, and then Matada I cannot release 1.
Yeah, but that's the reality of life. But because you don't blame her. At that time, I didn't understand. I blamed her. I felt bad about it. But maybe she has that 5. She doesn't know that she doesn't know where she would get money to buy another one. A lot of self-preservation. Yourself first. She wants to be alive. If she gives you that one, and tomorrow she has no way of getting another drug, what happened to her?
Now, why I cited that is this program is to encourage young people who is out there looking for a way forward. And from observation, I might say, at least we can vouch for, though we know we are a work in progress, success we can emulate.
Yes.
So if you have my guy, no out there, that job, able to become a better version of us.
My attitude is that you must have vision. My attitude is that you must have focus. My attitude is that you must have determination. You must persevere and believe that tomorrow is better than today. Today is not material. What is material is tomorrow. Once you have that at the back of your mind, whatever challenges you face today, you realize that your tomorrow is likely to be better than today. You're able to overcome.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we come to the end of this interview session, and we are very appreciative for the opportunity, sir, to speak to you. And I'm sure a lot of people like myself have been inspired by your story. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have just 1, 2 things that we want to present and you want to present and then you do for us. This is
but this is the nuku. Ono hebe musa nke di nke uku. Nke a di nke. Okay.
And that is what make my road this week.
Okay. I think I shared the story yesterday. When they said in 2014 they were going to make us chiefs, I declined. And the reason was that I felt that if I took it, it meant that all my struggles, all the efforts I made in the community was because I wanted something. And we must not do something to get something. And well, somehow, last minute, Chief Ebone, they convinced me where I needed to accept it. And I accepted it. They now asked and said, which is what is customary, what is your chieftaincy name? I said, I have none, because I never thought about it. I never aspired to be a chief. So I had no name. I had none I could think of. And so they now said, okay, if you don't have any, that day the Abriba community will give you one. And so that day I came. There is an insect that illuminates, brings light. That's what most people who go to farm use to find their way. It will just be illuminating. So Ukunda is an illuminator. You understand? It is a star that illuminates, the pathfinder that shows the way. So this is the two quick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Let's take it.
Okay.
So,
I ain't ever about Emirates or no Emirates Okay, yama Everybody bundima